Hi, it's the old Clifton Peddler here, and we have another edition of Cycling News Review. This is February the 21st. I've got 4 copies to get through, so let's head on. Our first is an ongoing challenge for the whole year. This is the CW 5000, and February's targets was 100 miles in 1 week, which I've done, and it was also 2,500 feet in one ride. I didn't quite actually make that, so I did about 1,600, so I didn't quite make that, but it's all good challenge. There's lots of people there. If you go on Strava, meet all sorts of people all the way around the world, all stuck in doing the 5,000 mile challenge. Okay, I think my total is about 250, so I'm lagging behind there a bit, so never mind. Okay, moving on. There's a couple of things here. In a recent broadcast by the RTE, that's the Irish broadcasters, they were forced to make an apology to Sam Bennett after mistakenly featuring a big image of his Duchinic Quick-Step teammate Remy Cavagna as he tried to honour the Tour de France green jersey winner at an awards ceremony. RTE showed the offending picture, which featured Frenchman Cavagna on the podium of last year's Volta a España as it announced the shortlist for its Sportsperson of the Year award, which included boxers, footballers and jockeys. Now, Sam Bennett was in the shadow of the great Peter Sagan. They were on the same team together, and he had to move team to Duchinic Quick-Step to make a name for himself. And last year in the Tour de France, he won the green journey, so fair play to him. Never mind. But moving on, I just found that hilarious myself. Cycling drops down the sports doping list. I was interested. Cycling had the 8th most doping cases in 2020, according to the Movement for Credible Cycling 2020, the credibility barometer. There were 18 recorded doping cases in cycling in 2020, compared with the 113 in track and field that topped the list, and 50 of the second place weightlifting. The figure is nearly half of last year's total of 32. Well, there wasn't much cycling last year, so I don't know whether how the figures pan. How that panned out. Never mind. Okay, now I'm not a big fan of carbon fibre bikes, the all fancy Gotchamui, whatever I call them, flashback bikes, but this bike caught my eye. It really did. Okay, this is the Bowman Palace 3. Okay, it comes in at 8.48 kilograms. It is a shade under £2,500, and where you think that top carbon bikes are £10,000. What I like about this is that they haven't gone totally for everything. It's got a complete Ultegra group set. You really won't notice a difference. The Dura-Ace is twice the price, and it isn't twice as good, I can assure you that. But what I really like about this is that it's aluminium. I think that's absolutely brilliant. Everything is top notch, and it's British too. So well done to the guys. I've certainly got it on my wish list. So yes, let's see what they say in the verdict. They give it 9 out of 10. The blending superb power transfer and speedy tendencies with an all-day comfort is no mean feat. But to pull that off, as well as delivering incredible value in a full Ultegra build with hand-built wheels, is seriously impressive. Yes, I think the wheels, the Noble wheels, are hand-built in UK as well. So a lot of bike there, which is made in Britain. The time-honoured standards and robust aluminium frame serve to make the Palace Street easy to live with as well. So fair play to them. Well done. I really like that. Okay, that was quick, wasn't it? There wasn't much in that. There was a lot of hot air basically. Okay, moving on. The second one. I try and cut out a lot of the gossip, and I try to cut out a lot of the races because we could be here all day. But this is a yes and no type of thing, and this has got two parts, and you'll see that a bit later. But this is the Super Tuck ban in tokenism from the UCI, and I'll bring this out. After Fabio Jacobson smashed through the safety barriers at literally breakneck speeds and ended up in hospital, the UCI had decided it is time to take some action regarding rider safety. The first victim of this is the Super Tuck. The dangerous descending method will be outlawed from the 1st of April. Let's hope the world's kids don't start attempting 360s off rooftops, say. Now the adrenaline rush of top tubes descending will be gone. The other rules are going to include upholding safety measures at race finishes, equipment and even bottles. You will be surprised how many crashes do get caused by bottles. Well, Grant Thomas is a victim of that, breaking his pelvis at the start of the gyro last year. But I just don't believe the UCI has riders' best interests at heart. In the past 10 years, we have seen more regulations regarding what type of lycra you're allowed to wear and how long your socks are. While at the same time, riders are being hospitalised by motorbikes with race finishes and various courses as dangerous as ever. So rather than banning things with no data to prove they're dangerous, why don't we look at when and how accidents actually occur? Sprints, finishes, vehicles, road furniture. Right now this seems like it's an excuse to ban a few things they don't like and pacify a few critics. I think I have to agree with them on that one, but I'll come back to later. Okay, now this has been going on all month, and I have commented about it on an earlier program. Chris Froome isn't very fond of his disc brakes. In fact, he made a video. Chris Froome raised a few eyebrows when he declared himself not completely sold on disc brakes in a review of the new Factor bike he arrived at Israel Startup Nation. Based on his video review of the Austral van, the change from rim brakes to disc is not entirely welcome. In fact, Froome spends over 20% of the 5-minute video explaining his gripes with the tech, concluding, I think you're not on disc brakes already. It's only a matter of time until you're made obsolete and forced onto them. I'm going to come back to this in another copy, because this story rumbles on. It really does. Short and sweet in this one, for shorter news, I can tell you that. Okay, moving on. Okay, we seem to have a sort of a other side of the coin here about UCI rules should reflect riders' safety concerns. There have been quite a few coverage. There's been quite a few bit of coverage around the UCI and their rule changes already this season, and races have only just started in Europe. We just had the start of the spring classics over this weekend that's just gone, the 27th and 28th of February. That is. We witnessed firsthand a fair bit of activity during the UCI Rules World Championships in Yorkshire back in 2019. Commissars measuring sock height, and of course the drafting in the U23 event with Niels Eckhoff all sparked conversations. Rules have to be in place for any sport, and cycling with all its disciplines has many. When the UCI banned the super tuck position and soon after the forearms on bars aero position and brought in penalties for littering, Some argued that it should be making event infrastructure safer rather than addressing these issues. What most don't see are the trickle-down consequences. Amateurs copying the action of the pros when competing at regional level. It happens. I've seen riders use forearms on the bar position and they are clearly not in control, says Mark Etches, which is true. Which is true. I've seen a lot of people mimicking the pros and they just haven't got a clue, especially on the main roads, sat down in the tuck position with the traffic all around them. And I think that that is where this is where they're going. The barrier concern should be an easy fix. Stage finishes should be overseen and the final 3 kilometres scrutinised so riders don't have to jump curbs and navigate street furniture at high speed. Looking at the Tour de France, the Volta and the Giro, I'm surprised there's not a lot more accidents. Some of these routes on the way in are bottlenecks, accidents waiting to happen, and they don't happen because of the skill of the riders. And one huge issue has been the position of the photographers, I'll say, at the end of the stage. Most of them are right by the finishing line, aren't they? And the riders actually ride into them. It's a matter. Never mind. Okay, they can do a lot more. I think. I think the whole lot they need to look at. Anyway, there's a couple here. All right. Dr. Richard Freeman, he's been in and out of the news because of this doping saga. Dr. Richard Freeman is facing UKAD charges of breaching 2 anti-doping rule breaches. The BBC report that former British cycling and Team Sky physician Freeman has been charged with 2 offences under the anti-doping rules as his fitness to practice medical tribunal comes to a close. Freeman is facing a medical misconduct hearing over allegations he ordered testosterone to be delivered to the BC headquarters to 2011, intended to administer it to a rider to dope. Unknown rider. No one's come forward, have they? While he has admitted obtaining the 30 sachets of the banned substance, he has denied the product was intended for doping. He said it was for Shane Sutton. There you go. But you have to ask, who was in charge then? Yeah. Who was his boss? Dave Brailsford. I don't see anyone coming forward to saying anything otherwise, and he hasn't taken responsibility of being his boss, and it seems a bit of a murky water, grey area, doesn't it? It doesn't. There's too many unanswered questions, and it throws up a lot more questions. That's what I say. Right. Bike thefts. They seem to have, bike thefts have doubled. The number of bike thefts taken from people's homes doubled last year, according to the one insurance company that has released its claims data for 2020. Okay. I was reading another piece somewhere. This was basically down to people who go on these apps, Strava and Commute, and they got their courses on and they start and finish from their house. Now on one of them you can put all your equipment down, and if you've got a good Gucci bike for 10,000 quid and you keep it in the shed, you're going to get it nicked. Okay. This is partly related to Chris Froome. We've got here 2021 Pro bikes. 6 of the best. We have the SD Work Specialized, the Factor Austral VAM, which got criticised by Froome. We have the BMC Team Machine, the Ribble Endurance, the Trek Modone, and the Trek Segafredo. Okay. And we've also got the Pinerola Dogma F12. Now, last year, all three winners of the Volta, the Tour de France and the Giro all won on rim brakes. But that ain't going to happen this year because there's only one team that is running rim brakes. Every other top team is running disc, and you have to ask why, because this team has the biggest budget, so it's not costs, is it? So why would Ineos Grenadiers, who've got the biggest budget, run rim brakes? Why? And I can tell you why, because disc brakes are a pain in the... They are. The mechanics don't like him, and the pros don't like him. That's all. You can't lean out of a service car with your Swiss Army knife and fettle at 30 miles an hour with a disc brake like you do with the old rim brake. There's very little adjusting to do on a rim brake once it's been going, but the disc brake, it's a flap, it really is. But they're sticking to it. And the cynical side of me is that it's extra bling to sell extra bikes. It works on mountain bikes and it works on touring bikes and commuting bikes because the gap is quite wide. But on bikes like these, the gap is very, very narrow. There is no room for error. And I do not remember in the last 20, 30 years where there's been a problem with rim brakes being a danger on high-speed racing. I don't. But it's been brought in because road bikes are the biggest seller. So if they're the biggest seller, they're going to have the biggest return. And that is the only side, it's my opinion only, but that is my only side which I can see them being forced on to road bikes. At the moment, we still have a choice. I'll come back to that in a minute. Okay, finally, not a lot of news, keeping it short. I could have gone into the racing and everything, but no, I'll keep it short. Okay, how long is a career in pro cycling? I don't know. A lot of them are retiring in the early 30s. Well, so if they start in their early 20s, it may be a 10 years. Well, this one guy, 29 years as a seasoned pro. The landmark that 49-year-old Italian rider David Rebellion will reach this year, having signed a last-minute deal with work service Marcelo Vega. The controversial rider, who had his 2008 Olympic road race silver struck from the record after a positive dope test, will line up first at the Trofeo Laiguaglia in March. So there you go. All right. So 29 years as a pro cyclist. Whew. Finally. Oh. And the argument goes on about Chris Froome and his disc brakes. I think there should be a choice. If you want rim brakes, have rim brakes. If you want discs, have discs. But it seems to be that the fact that you have to ride them. But with the Dogma 10, I've noticed other riders riding disc brakes, but not in the Ineos Grenadiers. They're all on rim brakes, and of course it's all about marginal gains, isn't it? Disc brakes are a lot heavier than rim brakes. They take shorter time for mechanics to set up, and the mechanics are hard pressed at the end of the race. They strip the bikes down, they clean them, they rebuild them, and then they got to flap around resetting these disc brakes, and even then next day they could squill or hell hit heaven. Anyway, what I'm driving at here was the comparison. Right, we have Chris Froome on one side, who is a multiple GC winner. Everybody knows Chris Froome, and he had a massive accident 2 years ago that almost ended his career. But he's back. He's just finished the United Arab Emirates race, but you know, he's back. He's racing, and then you got Hannah Barnes. Sorry, I don't know who Hannah Barnes is. I do follow cycling. It's just a name that hasn't come to me. I'm not going to Google it. But anyway, Chris Froome said, I think the distance between the disc and the rotors is still just too narrow, so they're going to get that rubbing. You're going to get that one piston that fires more than another. You're going to get these little issues. The disc becoming a bit warped when you're on a descent for a long enough 5-10 minutes with constant braking. Quite often it'll work on the stand, it'll work when the mechanic sorts it out, then once you get onto the road it's a different story. Personally, I just don't think the technology is quite where it needs to be yet for road cycling. And that's it basically, that sums it up. And I certainly saw the other week a lot of people having trouble with their disc brakes. I saw a couple of guys with the wheels stripped down, and there was a group of them, 9 altogether, packs of 2, but there was 9, sorting out 2 bikes. And yesterday there was a hell of a lot of people out on the road cycling, and you could hear people with disc brakes coming because the squeal was horrendous in places. But anyway, Hannah says, we're currently on a training camp in Spain, and some of the descents are down gradients of 20%, and I have been thinking to myself, thank God I'm on disc brakes. When we first got them, we had a session with one of the mechanics, and they showed us how to change the brake pads, how to adjust them, if there was any rubbing. When we're training at home, there's no one to help us with that, but it's pretty straightforward to do. I remember with rim brakes, I was constantly having to adjust them to get the right feel at the lever, but with hydraulic disc brakes, I rarely have to adjust them. Well, she seems to be saying totally reverse what a lot of other people, majority of other people say, that the disc brakes are a pain in the ass and the rim brakes are simple. But hey ho, I think we're going to be forced down that road, and in future it will only be a few parts for rim brakes, and then you'll start paying a premium to have rim brakes on, because there'll be a minority and not majority. The cynical side of me says we're being pushed by the industry to sell bikes. The bling on the bikes is going to sell them, and road bikes are the biggest seller, and that's the way it is. So that's it. That's this issue over with. Tomorrow we've got a sweet spot training to do, so there you go, stick to it. Other than that, this is the old, I forgot who I was then. This is the old Clifton Peddler saying good night. Okay, good night.